He would just know, no prompting, no cues. He'd quietly pad into a room and make himself comfortable, usually at the foot of the bed, sometimes on the chair near the window. He didn't meow or draw attention. He just was there. At first we thought it was coincidence, but after the fifth or sixth time, we started noticing the pattern. Within 24 hours of his visit, the patient would pass. It was never longer than that. Sometimes it was only hours. We never talked about it in any official way. There was no chart column for Oscar's visit, but the staff began to quietly acknowledge it. Eventually, the families noticed too. I remember one family, a middle-aged daughter, her husband, and their teenage son, were sitting with her father, Mr. Keene, a retired mailman with late-stage cancer. He hadn't been responsive for days. The daughter pulled me aside in the hallway and asked gently, "Has Oscar been in yet?" I looked at her for a long moment. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't hoping for a yes or a no. She just wanted to know if it was close. I nodded. She said, "Okay, we'll call his brother." Oscar didn't bring fear. Somehow, he brought a strange sense of peace. When he appeared, it meant things were near the end, but also that they didn't have to go alone. I saw it time and again. Oscar would settle in, calm and watchful, and the room would take on a different air. Not heavy, not eerie, just settled. Some patients who were still lucid would even acknowledge him. One woman smiled and said, "Well, hello, sweetheart," when he hopped on the bed beside her. She passed that night, with her hand resting on his back. We never trained him to do it. No treats, no coaxing. He simply knew. Oscar passed away a few years ago, quietly, in his sleep, under the front desk where he'd spent most of his off-duty hours. We all felt the loss. For a long time after, nurses and aides would look to the door out of habit, expecting to see his small silhouette when a patient began to decline. He wasn't just a cat. He was part of the team, part of the process. In this line of work, you don't always get to control how a person leaves. But every now and then, something or someone shows up to make sure no one goes out alone. Oscar did that for so many. No words, no noise, just presence. And sometimes that's more than enough. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind that settles over the hospice floor like a soft blanket. The kind of day where time slows down a little, and the only sounds are the rhythmic hiss of oxygen machines, and the occasional murmur of family conversation behind closed doors. I was making my rounds when I stopped into her room. Her name was Eleanor. She'd been with us for a few weeks by then. Mid-70s, diagnosed with advanced heart failure. No spouse, no children. Just a niece who visited every couple of days, bringing crossword books and fresh fruit she rarely touched. But Eleanor was content in her own way. Independent, soft-spoken, a woman who had once worked as a school librarian and still corrected our grammar with a raised brow and the ghost of a smile.